Hello and welcome to Promenade Française. Today's topic is French difficult? Finally, I want to talk about is French difficult from a technical perspective? And I can talk about this because I learned Chinese and I've learned Russian. If we compare the Russian language to the French language, I can see a lot of similarities. If we compare the Chinese language to the French language, there are like zero similarities. And I want to talk about this from the perspective of 5 different areas.
Yes.
First, it's the concept of conjugation, verb conjugation. Verb conjugation means that you have a personal pronoun. A personal pronoun, it's like I go, you go, he goes, she goes, we go, they go. Now, in English, we conjugate the word go, and we conjugate verbs in English in only 2 ways. So we have 2 groups. We have I go, we go, they go. And you can hear the word go, it's just G-O. And then we have he goes, she goes, Philip goes, Marie goes, Frank goes. So we have a name or he, she. So basically, there's 2 different categories of conjugation. There's 2 broad groups. French and Russian are different. So French and Russian, they both have very specific ways to conjugate verbs. It would be like he goes, she goes, I go away, you go wah, they go wah wah wah. It's like they change the verb for every single personal pronoun. So that means that when you're learning verbs in French and Russian, it's much, much more difficult. And in Chinese, there's zero conjugation. It's I go, you go, we go, he go, they go. And that's why sometimes Chinese people, when they learn foreign languages, they sound a little bit like Tarzan because they're not used to conjugating verbs at all. And English speakers, they don't really realize conjugation in English because we don't really think about it. But then when you start learning French or Russian, then suddenly it's like, whoa, you conjugate everything. Every time I want to learn a verb, I have to learn it in like 6 different ways. Second, it's the noun. Nouns in French and Russian, they have gender. And in Russian, from my studies, they have the male nouns, female nouns, and then they have neutral nouns, so nouns without gender, and then they have plural nouns. And from my understanding, French only has male and female. And this can be very strange for English speakers because in English, we don't have gender of nouns. We don't say that a window is a neutral gender, and then a desk is a male gender, and a picture is a female gender. It's like, why would you put gender into objects? It doesn't make any sense at all. You just have to understand that the world is full of objects that have genders. So that brings us to number 3. So once you have an object with gender, then in some languages you realize that the gendered object, when you have an adjective, the adjective also changes with the gender of the object. And so the ending of the adjective has to be the same as the ending of the noun. Meaning, if you say a beautiful girl in Russian, the beautiful ends with a, and the girl ends with a. And if you say a beautiful man, then beautiful ends with e, and man ends with e. It's like, it's so complicated because the adjectives are always changing. And in English, the adjectives never change. And in Chinese, the adjectives never change. So it's just like English. You just have some object, and you don't have to worry about if it's a male or if it's a female gender, and then therefore you don't have to worry if the adjective also has to be changed so it matches the male or female gender. All right, so that's 3.
Yay!
Now, in Russian, they have like an additional difficulty. They have like cases. They have like basically 5 or 6 different situations. And depending on the situation, you also have to make changes to the adjectives and the nouns. I'll give you an example. So there is a beautiful woman. You're saying beautiful with the word beautiful is a, and the end of the word woman is a. But if you see a beautiful woman, then you change the beautiful to oo and the end of the word for woman to oo. So it's like, what is going on? So I would say that Russian, grammatically, it's one of the most difficult languages. French, I don't think French has cases. And so I'm looking forward to not having to learn cases in French. Now, finally, in Russian, there's some other things. They have these things called verbs of motion, and in verbs of motion, then you have to understand if the motion has been completed or if you're in the process of doing the motion. And so you have 2 different verb forms for something which is in motion and something which has completed the motion. And I'm hoping in French that they don't have that either. So if you look at the differences between French and Chinese and Russian, Russian has 5 very, very, very difficult things which almost do not exist at all in English, and they don't exist in Chinese. And then 3 of those 5 things, they also exist in French. You have to worry about conjugation. You have to worry about the gender of nouns. And well, I guess I'm trying to figure out what else French has around the door for difficulty. But if for now, what we can do is just focus on trying to stay motivated and then creating a process to learn the language piece by piece. And if you really want to learn French, and if like not learning French isn't an option, so if like you've already decided you will learn French and you're just having a problem staying motivated and learning things piece by piece, then keep following me because I'm having a really hard time with staying motivated and learning piece by piece. And so I'm going to figure this out and I'm going to provide those tools and those processes for you here at Promenade Française.